Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. We are joined here, as always, by the man who is in a very unusual position, actually looking forward to his team having a first-round pick with the New England Patriots. Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm good. Don't speak too soon on New England. There's a good chance that we'll trade back and trade out of the first round still after all this. So,
yes, very true. So we're going to be doing our second annual mock draft. It should be very fun, but we're going to wait just a second to get into it because there was news that broke, the Orlando Brown Jr. trade. So we're going to talk about this and then we're going to get into the mock draft. So still doing a mock draft, no one panic. But this was a surprise to say the least, Kyle.
Yeah, this is just a bad trade. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. On Baltimore's side, I don't like this trade. I understand Orlando Brown wants out, so you probably should trade him, and he probably needs to be traded. But it'd be one thing if the Chiefs, who are your biggest competitor to winning the AFC, which, despite how annoying they've been in the postseason these past few years, they're still a contender in the AFC. And Kansas City is your biggest adversary to getting to the AFC Championship and into the Super Bowl. And unless they blow you away with an offer that includes like a first-round pick and something else going forward, why would you trade to Kansas City? I'm not necessarily of the proponent that, AFC teams shouldn't trade with AFC teams or anything like that. But if this is a team that is in your position and a team you have to beat to make the Super Bowl, why would you willingly make them better to move up 27 picks? I just don't necessarily agree with that. I feel like they could have got like offers from other teams that would have been just as fine. So I don't know. I didn't agree with the trade at all.
Yeah, I 100% agree. TJ, yes, I do read the live chat on occasion. I completely agree with you. I think that this was, I don't know. It was just bizarre. So according to Jimmy Johnson created a scale of basically evaluating where, how valuable is a draft pick. Who knows how accurate it is. But according to that scale, this was the equivalent of a mid-second round pick that the Ravens got. So I just don't think that's enough for a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle. And I get that you needed to trade him, but I don't know. This feels like, how does, another team not give you that needs a tackle, give you something similar that's just not to your number one competition? If you're trying to win a Super Bowl, helping the Chiefs out doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I just don't understand it at all. From the Chiefs side, I love this trade. You're moving back 27 spots. Yeah. There's not a ton of holes on that team, so it's like, the hole was offensive line, and you make up for that. Orlando Brown, if he was in this draft right now, even at 24, would be a first-round pick lock, knowing what he is in the NFL right now and the known commodity. That left side of that offensive line is scary now, right? Him, Joe Thuney, they have Duvernay Tardif at right guard too. That's a pretty good offensive line all of a sudden, rebuilt pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that we were all, singing the song of the Chiefs' demise, only for them to then add Joe Thuney and Orlando Brown Jr. It's like, okay, well, looks like they're still going to be set next year.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is you can argue, he's on the expiring contract, but I think if we've learned anything through this whole Saints ordeal this offseason, the Chiefs and how they've moved their money and all that, NFL contracts are just complete BS. They're completely ridiculous. All you have to do is move the money around, and they're just going to be able to move the money around year after year until they can have, Joe Thuney, I believe, is like $4.5 million on the cap this year when he's got like a $60 million contract. So the contracts are just complete bullshit because you can just keep moving it around and just capitalizing year after year. So they're just going to push back Thuney's contract again, re-sign Orlando Brown next year, and they're going to have this offensive line for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Kansas City looking like they're good. Or I guess real quick before we get into the mock draft, does this change the power rankings? Are they now back in the driver's seat to be the favorites for Super Bowl 56?
No. I mean,
okay.
I still say no. I still like Tampa's team more. I think it's a more complete team. There's still things I don't love about Kansas City, honestly. And I don't think it was just the offensive line that didn't play well in that Super Bowl, contrary to popular belief. I don't think
Hmm.
the defense was really that good until the second half, where Tampa was just kind of on cruise control. They kind of got carved up a bit in that first half up until you know, it was like a 3-score game. And then, like I said, Tampa just starts cruising. Then they take their foot off the gas. Kansas City's a little closer into it, but they're getting carved up for the first half of that game. So I still think there's some holes on that team that they're going to have to address. And I think Tampa's the more complete team, despite it, Mahomes is better than Brady more talent wise, especially right now. But it's not that big of a discrepancy that changes things for me.
Yeah, I think all good stuff. And thank you, TJ, in the chat. We appreciate that. And with that being said, let's get into what you're all here to see, the mock draft. We're going to use the Pro Football Focus mock draft simulator to do this. I think this could be a very fun exercise. The way we're going to do this is Kyle is going to get the odd numbers. I'm getting the even. We did it that way, so that way Kyle can pick for the Patriots and I can pick for Tampa Bay. Kyle, I think I know where you're going to go pick number one, but I'll still ask the question. Oh, we should also specify before we get into it how we're doing this. So I know some people in the chat were joking about me picking Kellen Mond. What we're going to do is we're going to do what I would do. The wordage is, if you're a fan of that team, what you'd be hoping for that could realistically happen. So basically, number 3 overall, yeah, I think Kellen Mond's really great, but I also recognize he wouldn't go there. So I'd probably hope for Mac Jones, which could realistically happen. So that's the wordage. I think that hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And Kyle, are you ready to go?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. So I have the number 1 pick here with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I haven't quite started donating to Jacksonville Jaguars charity to reveal my picks here, as Trevor Lawrence has. But I mean, this is a can't miss situation. I know that when you watch the Zach Wilson highlights, it looks awesome, and there are times where honestly he looks like he has the improvisation and pocket mobility of Joe Burrow with the arm of Justin Herbert. So I think he's a superstar prospect, but I think Trevor Lawrence feels pretty can't miss. He has some things that he's not perfect. He takes some unnecessary chances. His throws a little long, as Chris Tams has pointed out. But 6'6", great size. He's about Andrew Luck minus 30 pounds, I think. And as soon as this pick goes through on Thursday, I am putting the largest sum on Trevor Lawrence to win Rookie of the Year that I can think of, because it just feels like a lock. He's going into a great situation here with a decent offensive line, a really good running back, and 2 good receivers in Laviska Shenault and DJ Chark. So he's going into a great situation here, and I think this is a shoe-in for Rookie of the Year and first overall Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, and they added Marvin Jones too, so it's really 3 good receivers.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, again, we don't have to spend forever on Lawrence just because it is obvious. I said I'd go Zach Wilson, but I can't hate on Trevor Lawrence either. I think these are 2 guys I could easily see being a Hall of Famer. And with Lawrence too, like you said, offensive Rookie of the Year, I think that seems totally logical given the situation. And also, we've seen that guys who go higher in the draft have a better chance of winning it. And with the hype that's around him, I could easily see that happening.
Yeah, and like I said, I think he's going to be in the best situation of any rookie, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe we could talk about, as we get a little further in this draft, I think there's one spot that could be interesting too. But as far as the quarterbacks go, I think that he's in a really good spot here, and that's really going to help him too. So
Yeah.
I feel like it's obvious. We don't have to spend too much time on it. So I don't think we have to spend too much time on this one. Number 2.
Yeah, obviously, I think if I was a Jets fan, I'd be super ecstatic about Zach Wilson. I mean, there's so much talent. I still think there's a chance the Jets jet this up and get like Justin Fields here, which I think would be a huge mistake. But and not that I hate Justin Fields. I just think Zach Wilson is just he's incredible, and he is that guy who could potentially change a franchise. And so I have him at number 2.
Yeah, and makes perfect sense. I think one of the things I said that I think is still kind of true. I think if anyone's built to succeed in New York and built or succeed with kind of minimal resources on that offensive side of the ball, I think Zach Wilson's kind of the guy to do it. I think he has more experience playing with worse talent. He has more improvisation ability than I think Trevor Lawrence too. So I think if anyone's, I think the Jets fans should be thrilled, because I think he's more suited to succeed with this team than Lawrence is.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. All right. Yeah, we don't spend forever on these. Also, Luke Brown asked, "Are you guys doing only the first round?" Yeah, only first round, and also no trades. Just so you know how that works. Number three. This is where things get interesting. You're going here, Kyle. If you were a 49ers fan, who would you be rooting for?
So I've been going back and forth on this. My quarterback rankings have basically fluctuated up until
Uh huh.
yesterday. Um, and this is the guy I've been high on since July, so I'm just going to go back to him here. I'm going to go with Mac Jones. I'm picking
Oh.
Mac Jones at third. I bet on him for Heisman in July. He panned out, and I want to dispel this whole thing about Mac Jones doesn't have a high ceiling because I think it's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. This
Mm-hmm.
guy is a hyper accurate passer. You know, if we look at just elite prospects, elite categories here, Mac Jones has elite accuracy, and it's not just accuracy, it's ball placement with him. He puts the ball in the perfect situation for his receiver virtually every time. So I think he has elite accuracy. I think he has elite pocket mobility, and I think he has an elite ability to read the defense. So just because he's not athletic like these other guys, I think he has three elite categories into his quarterback arsenal that put him at a pretty high ceiling to be a good quarterback in the league for some time. We've seen three of the best quarterbacks you talk about of all time from these past 20 years, Manning, Brady, Breeze, all didn't have athleticism. So to say that he doesn't have a high ceiling because he doesn't have athleticism is another thing. Is just I just disagree with it completely. I'm not saying he is going to be Manning, Breeze, or Brady, but I think he has a lot of really good qualities to him. He's super accurate with the ball, and that's just a guy who I think Kyle Shanahan, like I said, is going to look at this and said, "I threw 5,000 yards with Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub threw
Mm-hmm.
5,000 yards for me. I can get this guy and his skill set to throw 5,000 yards in a season. So I think Mac Jones is going to be the guy."
Yeah, I'm all aboard on this pick. I think that I thought you were going Justin Fields when you said the guy you've been high on for a while because I know you're a big fan of Fields as well. But to me, this comes down to, I actually think there is a chance Trey Lance goes here too. I feel like everyone keeps talking about Fields versus Jones. I wouldn't be shocked to see Lance go here either. But
Yeah.
for Fields, the thing that keeps making me go back to, I just don't think at one point I think I did a mock draft where I said what I think will happen, and I had Fields at 3, but I've kind of changed my opinion because why would Kyle Shanahan want a guy who is going to take unnecessary chances and get rid of throw interceptions and things of that nature? The whole point of his offense is that stuff doesn't happen. It just doesn't feel like a great fit for me with Fields. Mac Jones just fits way better, I think.
I agree. I think he's a perfect fit for Shanahan's scheme. I think he's a perfect fit for that offense. And literally, the thing is that so this whole conversation about the 49ers this year, I don't think they have to trade Garoppolo, which is kind of what everyone's saying. If they draft a quarterback, they should. They don't have to because they still have all their players under the cap this year. This just kind of sets them up that they don't have to re-sign Garoppolo because they have a good quarterback in the wings. Or if he's better than Garoppolo, then he can play. If this team
Yeah,
had competent quarterback play last year without injuries, or even with those injuries, if they just had competent backup quarterback play, they probably beat Chicago for the last playoff spot. They just had incompetent backup quarterback play. And I think Mac Jones is a competent quarterback. So even if he's backup year one, you're probably guaranteeing Jimmy G is going to get hurt because he does. And then all of a sudden you feel confident with Jones going in there and getting you to the postseason still.
yeah, I think that's interesting. I do think that unless they just can't get much value for Garoppolo, it probably would still make sense to trade. Like if you can get a first round pick for Garoppolo, I think you like for
Right.
this year, I think you get rid of him. I think that, but like if you can't get fair value, yeah, don't be afraid to just keep him for a year.
Yeah, you still have all your guys under the cap, and then if you want to move on for Garoppolo, you can to make sure you can re-sign guys like Bosa and some of those younger guys because they have plenty of money to be able to do it. This is a Super Bowl contending team that felt like once Garoppolo went down, they were a quarterback away. So I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I don't hate it either. Number 4. So Atlanta Falcons. To me, there are really this comes down to two players, Sewell or Pitts. And I actually don't hate either selection here. I don't think there's a wrong way to go. I think these guys are both so good. I just think that, Atlanta doesn't necessarily need a tackle. And I really wouldn't say they needed a left tackle. So I do think I'm going to go Kyle Pitts because they're just both so good. Pitts just fits a little better. But if they went Sewell, if they feel like that positional value just matters more, I wouldn't hate that either. So I'm going to go Kyle Pitts. But if you went Sewell, I wouldn't be mad at that either.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, choking on beer. So this is also a pro Matt Ryan podcast, by the way. We've been saying this for years. We like
Uh-huh.
Matt Ryan here. So we're not drafting a quarterback. And with no trades, obviously, they have a chance with – these are my top two guys on my big board. I have Pitts 1 and Sewell 2, but it's close. I think you have probably pretty close to the same as well. I'm not sure exactly. But so I would take Pitts here too. I think it makes a really dynamic offense. I still think they need some help on the offensive line. But if you have Pitts, Jones, and Ridley, I mean – that's really dangerous. That's explosive. So that's a good pick. And I think if they're not trading out of this pick to give a team with, if they're not blown away with the trade offer for a team needing a quarterback, I think Pitts is the guy they should take. And even if they do get a good offer, I think Pitts might be the guy.
Yeah, I don't know, because I don't really see for the trade. It's tough because you have Pitts and Sewell, who I think are the two guys that you're going to want one of those guys. They're kind of, to me, they're a tier. They're a step ahead of everyone else. Some people would put Jamar Chase there as well. I wouldn't, but you could argue him as well. But if they trade, really, they're going to have to probably trade to like 9 for Denver. But at that point, they're not getting one of the top guys. And is Denver really going to trade up like multiple first-round picks just to go up that spot to get a quarterback when they'll probably have a quarterback fall? I just don't know. I just think it's just kind of a tough situation. Like, is New England going to give up multiple first-round picks to jump up to 4? Like, it's going to be tough to really outbid for Kyle Pitts or Sewell. So I think they end up just selecting a guy at 4.
Yeah, I could see it too. I guess the one variable would be like if Arthur Smith wants a quarterback. And if Arthur Smith wants a quarterback and likes, like in our scenario, if he likes Fields or if he likes Lance, then does that become a conversation? But at the most part, I do think it's those two guys. They're the best 2 players in the draft. And because of the quarterback needy teams ahead of them, they have a great opportunity to get an elite prospect at 4, which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. Number 5 now. I think I know the answer to this, but where are you going with this?
I had my rant on this. This is the dumbest conversation I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Anyone saying Jamar Chase here, just get off the chat now. Honestly. Penei Sewell should be the pick here at 5. Anyone saying that they should draft a receiver here, I just think is nuts. I think that an elite, a generational left tackle is needed for this team. I think Jamar Chase is a nice commodity. I like Chase more than Jackson does. But even then, I think Sewell's a generational left tackle. You saw what happened with Joe Burrow without Joe Burrow without offensive line help. He needs offensive line help. You can't have him get hurt again. So I think that that's important. And the big thing is too, like, it's not like he's throwing to scrubs right now. Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins are good. These are good wide receivers at their positions. In Cincinnati, I just think Jamar Chase would be the completely wrong pick here. Penei Sewell's the guy.
Yeah. To me, it comes down to you can get a receiver in the 2nd round, and you don't have to use this pick on a receiver when you have potential to get this talented tackle. I know that, as someone pointed out in the chat, I lost it. Oh, here we go. Luke Brown. Joe Burrow wants Chase. That is something that's true. But I just feel like every time a front office listens to a quarterback, a young quarterback, it typically doesn't go well. You typically want to, you trust the guys who you're paying to scout these players. You don't trust someone just because he was teammates with the guy. I just think that I do think it would be a big mistake to go with Chase as well. Just because, again, we've been talking about, it's the new Moneyball thing. You don't select the wide receiver this high up. You wait till the 2nd round and draft the guy. And especially when Penei Sewell is on the board.
Yeah, he may want Chase, but you know what else he probably wants? Not to tear his ACL again. I'm willing to bet that he probably doesn't want that to happen again. I think I think that it makes perfect sense for Sewell to be the guy. He fits this team. So yeah, I think Sewell to the Bengals makes sense. And now our draft is getting interesting here as we go to number 6 in the Dolphins.
Yeah, and last thing about the Bengals too, that you get Sewell, you get Jonah Williams. You can fill up the interior offensive line a lot easier. That's looking like actually a good offensive line all of a sudden. Yeah, number 6. A lot of people would go Chase here, but like I said, I just think it's a bit early for a wide receiver. I like Chase. I'm a big fan of his. I don't think he's a generational talent like some people do, but I think he's still a really good prospect. I think I'd rather go Micah Parsons here. I think Micah Parsons fits the defense perfectly. You don't have to make him play zone coverage a bunch. You can let him sort of roam around, do what he's great at. I think they could use a linebacker. It's not the biggest position of need, but they certainly could use one. And I think it could turn their defense from good to potentially elite. Get someone who can make more splash plays, which Flores is likes. And again, they can draft a receiver with the 18th pick. So I think this logically makes more sense.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting pick. I think especially with Kyle Van Noy being cut, this would be interesting to see them, fill in that linebacker role kind of. I think he's has a rare talent that's similar to Devin White, that his ability to come up and make tackles north-south, and also the range to go east-west on a lot of running backs and track them down. I think it's really impressive. Wow, the chat does not like this pick.
Yeah, they're not happy about it.
Oh boy. Well,
whatever.
At Jackson Kruger, that's the pick here.
Hey, so you can at me if you want.
It's okay. They probably didn't like Mac Jones either. So yeah, Micah Parsons, I think he's a really fantastic defensive player. I have heard there are character concerns or something like that, but overall, I think this is a good system in Miami. I wouldn't hate the pick. I probably would have gone Chase just because Chase just has a lot of DeAndre Hopkins to him. I'm not, pandering to the chat either. But I think Chase has a lot of DeAndre Hopkins to him, where that he just makes really extremely hard catches look easy. And I feel like that Tua could definitely use a wide receiver who makes catches look easy.
Okay, let me go. I'm going to have to cut you off because the chat is going crazy. I have to defend myself a little bit.
Okay.
So let me ask you, first off, Miami has Will Fuller. They have Devontae Parker. You're now going to add in Jamar Chase. Now you have a third receiver who consistently gets their wins on the outside. You already have two receivers who can get their wins as a plus. Maybe you're concerned about Fuller getting hurt, but really you need a slot receiver. You don't need Jamar Chase anyways. People keep acting like this is some massive need for Miami. They don't need a wide receiver. I know they don't necessarily need a linebacker either, but I think they could use one. And they're kind of in a position where they can fill that up with a later pick, whether it's 18 or whether it's a second round pick. If you feel like you can get Parsons with 18, maybe, but I just don't see him falling that far. And I just think that drafting wide receiver here, it just doesn't make sense. And everyone who is falling in love with Jamar Chase, statistically, the first wide receiver selected doesn't pan out as much as you would think. It's more likely to be a bust than it is to be even a Pro Bowler. So I think that people are way too high on this pick, and I think it would be a huge mistake for them to draft Chase.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of variables to it. Historically, like you said, wide receivers taking this early are tough, which is why I'm going to take a wide receiver early for Detroit here at number 7. We'll move on here. Yeah, I mean, I feel like if this worked out for them, then they're going to take Chase. They're going to have a Rod Marinelli special here where Detroit Lions are taking a wide receiver in the first round. I think Chase, can really help this team. I think they have a lot of holes, so it's not like that they need to necessarily draft. They don't need a draft need here because there's too many needs. So this is one of their needs now with Golladay out. They get a guy like Chase. Like I said, extremely good catching ability. He's not a perfect wide receiving prospect, but great size, decent route running, good hands. I really like Chase. I'm a huge fan of his, and 7 makes sense.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. Chad hates it. I just think it's too early for a wide receiver. And I think 5 years from now, no one's going to be drafting a wide receiver in the top half of the first round.
That's probably true. I think that this is going to be corrected because there's so many darn wide receivers now in the NFL. And we've seen it time and time again. DK Metcalf, Travis Fulgham. All these guys keep popping up in later rounds that you don't necessarily have to worry about it. But I still think wide receiver is a commodity position that teams look for. So I still think I'm still going to feel pretty confident that Chase is going to be a pick here if he falls this far.
Yeah, fair enough. Agree to disagree. I realize I'm kind of on an island with that one. So number 8, this one I'm having a tough time with, to be honest. So again, we're talking about what realistically could happen. Slater, I like Slater. I think getting him makes sense. They could pair him with Motton. You get 2 good tight end or good tackles, I think, which could make sense. To me, though, I don't know. I kind of feel like quarterback makes sense here. I'm struggling with it because getting a quarterback, I just don't know how much confidence I'm going to have in Sam Darnold when he got outplayed by Joe Flacco last year. Everyone, for some reason, has done a complete 180 on Darnold and is convinced he's still a good player somehow. I just don't get it. I think that it's a horrible move when you're in your second year as a head coach to go in and have Sam Darnold as your only quarterback. I think you need another Darnold's a fine plan B. I think you need a plan A though. I'm gonna go Trey Lance here.
Trey Lance. All right. Trey Lance is an interesting prospect for me. He's such a wild card in my book for a lot of things. I think if you were to almost construct a quarterback in a lab, I think, for the modern day NFL, I think Trey Lance might kind of be your guy. And I think he has everything you look for. We just have basically seen it, 12 games? So I think it's really tough to see overall, but I think he's a tantalizing prospect. And I think some team is going to jump on him early rather than late. I don't think he's going to be a guy who falls just because everything about him is so tantalizing to see.
Yeah. People hating every move I make, which is fine. I'm cool with that. I still fully plan to be. It's weird because I feel like there's been new sort of shreds of people hearing my analysis week after week after week that hate it, but it's kind of been like a small group. Now I think the numbers are very high here. I think people are just new to all these sort of wild ideas I have. I feel like I've explained it well in the past, but I don't know. Is it that crazy to think that the Panthers should have another quarterback besides Sam Darnold? That's somehow this wild pick.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I don't understand why people love Sam Darnold so much and keep giving him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, the thing is I feel like people are just going to keep looking at Sam Darnold highlights and say Sam Darnold's good. I think people who watch Sam Darnold play football, as I was subjected to twice a year basically as a Patriots fan, no, he's not a very good football player. And I'm willing to be proven wrong if he improves at Carolina. I just think that, I don't think he's a very good football player. So I think a quarterback makes sense.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm going to start putting people in timeouts. If you disagree, that's fine. But don't just, no need for trolling in the chat. But I'll be very quick at the timeouts. Don't try me. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, what were we talking about? I was too focused on timeouts.
Trey Lance and why Carolina needs somebody other than Sam Darnold.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the reality is, what would you rather have? Rashawn Slater, who's I think is a good tackle. I think there's a lot of logic there. I don't think he's like a sure thing, great, fantastic prospect. If you want to trade down, I'm fine with that because that's another thing is we're not doing trades, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. But like, what's the better chance? A franchise quarterback when you have your pick of Lance or Fields, or a guy who could be a franchise tackle? And I feel like there's a better chance of Lance being a franchise quarterback than Slater being a franchise tackle, if I'm being honest. So, and the upside is just so big, the positional value. And if Sam Darnold doesn't work out, Matt Rule could be in a tough spot. It could be the end of his career. Like, you need a quarterback in the NFL today.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's the right play. The one scenario I think could happen is maybe if Chase falls, you can say, oh, we could pair him with DJ Moore, and that'd be a really compelling duo. And then it's like, oh, well, now there's no excuse for Sam Darnold to be bad. But I still think the more important thing is to focus on trying to build a winning team rather than proving Sam Darnold's not a good quarterback, which is why I think having a quarterback insurance is the right move.
Yeah, I agree. All right, number 9. Let's get off this so people can stop making fun of me. You go ahead.
So this would be another interesting Slater spot, but with one quarterback left, I think they're going to take the chance on it. Now, if they don't love Justin Fields, they can move back or, like I said, take Slater. But I just think that they've been looking for quarterbacks. They've been after a lot of them. So if Justin Fields is here, I'm going to go Justin Fields as the 5th quarterback.
Yeah, I like this pick. This is what I would do also in this spot. Denver seems they need a quarterback, and they're in a pretty good spot where it feels like a quarterback is going to end up falling here unless there's a trade. So they might not have to even trade up to get a quarterback. The question is, do you want to trade up to get your guy? But getting one of the top 5 for Denver, I don't really care who they get. They just, again, they're a very similar spot to Carolina, where it's like you don't want to just go into the next season relying on Drew Lock. You got to get another plan, and Justin Fields I think is a great chance.
Yeah, and Vic Fangio is basically on the hot seat this year, so
yeah,
he's got to have somebody in place in case maybe take over for Lock, or if Lock folds, then you have a guy right there who's ready to go, who could be an answer going forward. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. All right. Might as well just keep stepping into hot takes here because getting people more mad. I can't. I don't know. Surtain, to me, this feels a bit early. I'm not as high on Surtain as other people. His speed is a concern for me. I don't think he's a sub 4.5 guy because his pro day was like 4.46, something like that. So I don't think I can go Surtain. I do feel like Dallas could use a tackle, even though but the issue is like, do they really want to go offense here when their defense was so bad? It's the real guys I feel like I would take are kind of further down. I don't see that realistically happening. I don't see anything other than Surtain getting selected. I don't know. This is it's tough. You know what? How about this? I'll go I'll go JC Horn. I think that he fits that system better. I think I like him a little bit better than Surtain. I'm gonna go JC Horn here, number 10.
Yeah. I mean, I have said time and time again, I think JC Horn's the number one cornerback. It'll be interesting to see what I think Dan Quinn's coming in, right? He's the defensive coordinator.
Perfect fit. That's what I mean. Perfect fit.
Yeah, so I think that makes a lot of sense. I really like JC Horn. I know people like Surtain, and a lot of it looks really nice. And, he was kind of dominated an island out there in the SEC, but this isn't the SEC, it's the NFL. So I really like JC Horn. I like his mindset. He's gone up against some of the best and beat some of the best. I like Horn here as well.
Yeah, and again, the chat finally likes it, even though this is a pick I don't feel that strongly about. I just think they're kind of in a weird spot. But yeah, this is kind of, it's just, you got to think about the system. JC Horn does fit the system, so they need defensive help. This makes sense to me, I think. You want to go to number 11?
Yeah, we can go to number 11. So I think, would the interesting thing be here, like, do the Giants not want to take a tackle in back-to-back drafts would be the question. Do they decide to look at this and say, I don't want another offensive tackle? Because I feel like Rashawn Slater's the right pick here. But I'm really tempted to just take Jalen Phillips and just say, him and Leonard Williams, that's going to be sick to watch. I think I got to go Slater here, though. I got to pick Slater because I just think that's too much of a need. They just got to swallow their pride and say they need somebody next to Andrew Thomas, or maybe replace Andrew Thomas if that's not working out, because he didn't look good last year, and I think they need the help still.
Yeah, I think I would go Phillips if here, probably more so, but I don't hate Slater either. I think Slater makes sense. Again, the offensive line it's a real issue for the Giants, and really, I think we all can agree we want to just see good offensive linemen for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a problem for them for 5 years.
Yeah.
So get the guy who is probably the offensive lineman with the best footwork and best just pure mechanics at the position. He doesn't have the, size and craziness of Sewell, but he's just technically sound. And get him in that building and make it work out, and just say, Thomas might have been a whiff last year. We may need to fix that. I think, like I said, if they're not going that, I think Phillips and Williams would be a really fun edge rushing duo, and that'd be something I consider too. But I think Slater's the right pick for me.
Yeah, and one thing I like about it too is, so they could use an extra tackle anyway, so this works. And what we've said about Slater this whole time is that it seems like his floor is really good guard. That seems like, even if he doesn't end up being a great tackle, he'll end up being a really good guard, which they could use. So either way, this just feels like I think this is a good pick right here. Want to go into number? Am I good going to number 12?
Yeah, go ahead. Couple receivers here. Is that where you're going with Philadelphia?
It seems like they have to go receiver again. It feels a little bit early for me still at number 12, but the sort of, we said what we would want that would realistically happen. I just don't think there's any way they don't go wide receiver here. So I'm going to go Jalen Waddle. He is my second favorite receiver in the draft. We'll get to my favorite later on, probably. Jalen Waddle, I think, he's a really good receiver. I think he can win on the outside. He can definitely win on the inside. Great footwork, great acceleration, great speed. He's exactly what I look for in a receiver, and he's that true number one guy that can really, hopefully, give Jalen Hurts a weapon.
Yep. He's one of those guys that you look at and you could say, I wouldn't be shocked if he's the best wide receiver in this draft in 5 years. I would not be shocked at all. He has electric stuff on the outside, running across the middle, going in the slot. He can do a lot of different things. Helps out in the return game too, where he's electric. He was one of my favorite players in college football the last couple of years, up until that injury and all that. I just think he's electric, and I think he's a good fit for anywhere he goes. And I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's so much and again, their receiving core might have been the worst in the league last year. It was not good. So they need to desperately improve that. And he's someone who can, at the very least, take on a double team, get someone else open.
Yep. So I think that makes perfect sense for them. So I'm not good to move on to number 13 here.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So we have a couple picks here that I think make a ton of sense. I think they need a corner, and I think Brandon Staley would like a corner if they wanted to get a guy like Farley, although that's probably a little early than conventional picks. I think Jalen Phillips is another spot for him. But I actually had him penciled in before the draft, too, because I didn't think Slater would fall very far. I'm just going to go Christian Darrisaw here and get another offensive lineman for this team and further solidify Herbert in the back at quarterback.
Yeah, I like it. Darisaw, he is my second favorite tackle in the draft. So to me, this feels like it makes a lot of sense to me. I think that they could desperately use a offensive line help, and you don't want to Joe Burrow it and have him get hurt. So getting a strong tackle who I think can really help them out. Totally on board here.
Yeah, so I think it makes perfect sense there. We don't spend too much time on it. We've gotten through a lot
Yeah.
of offensive linemen, I feel like.
Right. Number 14. This is tough. So again, it has to be something that could realistically happen. Let's see. I'm thinking. So I don't think they go Surtain because they just got burned with getting Jeff Gladney a slow corner last year. I don't think they're going back there. I think that you know what? If your secondary is poor, one of the best ways to help that out is with getting a good edge rusher. And Jalen Phillips, to me, is the best edge rusher in this draft. It might be a bit of a reach, but I'm going to say that, you know what, I think it's realistic. It's possible. I've seen some mocks get him. You can now have Danielle Hunter on one side, Jalen Phillips on the other. You don't need guys who can cover for very long if you got both of these two guys. And their defense could use some help. So I think getting Phillips makes sense.
Yep, exactly. I'm with you on this one. I think it makes a lot of sense. We talked about this last week. You know, if it wasn't for injury history, he'd probably be a top 10 lock. I think he's the best pure edge rusher in this class. He's got a ton of moves, insane athleticism, high pedigree. I think he's a big time player, and I think this is a good pick for Minnesota because I don't think they're going corner another year in a row. So I think this makes sense, especially after losing Ngakoue and that whole thing failing.
Exactly. And to a couple of the concerns in the chat, the Vikings have no offensive line. That's true, but I just don't feel like I would feel comfortable getting one this early. It would feel like a reach to me. And to the injury concerns, it is true, but I also feel like way more often than not, when you draft a guy with injury concerns, it works out than it doesn't work out. So that's my opinion. All right. You want to go to your team, 15?
Yeah, we'll go to my team. So this is a tough spot for me. I was kind of hoping Parsons would fall farther than he did. He did not, obviously. I wouldn't mind this team trading back for a guy like Zaven Collins if that opportunity came up and this was the draft in front of them. Obviously, we're doing no drafts here.
No trades.
No trades here. Yeah, no draft either.
Some people in the chat would hope for no draft, apparently, after some of my picks.
Yeah. Yeah, so if it's too early to take Collins for me, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. Devontae Smith here.
Okay.
Insane route running, insane ability. We've seen him put up huge numbers, which I don't think is a big deal for the next level, but I think it, makes a ton of sense here. He could be the potential number one for this wide receiving group. And yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I don't love him as a prospect just because I don't love 165-pound players in the NFL. I know he has listed at 175, but I don't love it purely, but I think it makes a lot of sense if he falls this far just to take him and say it's okay.
Yeah, and he could be, I feel like the one thing the Patriots could potentially use is like a number one guy. He has number one wide receiver potential. I'm on board with this pick for sure. I don't have too much else to add to it. You have anything else?
No, I think it makes sense. This is a need for them. Their needs are this. The only other thing would be interesting is because there's two guys here that I think are positions of need. They could add another guy in Surtain and just say, let's add another guy to the secondary and do that. Or they could take a guy in Smith who's potentially number one guy, where it feels like the past couple of years the Patriots have had a bunch of number two and number threes, but no number one. He's their potential number one guy. Although, like I said, the number of guys who are 165 and make it in the league, the list is small. So he's got a long way ahead of him, but we've seen the talent level and it's very high. So I like Smith here.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the list of guys who have been an incredible college wide receiver at 165, that list is small too. So there is some promise there. Yeah, I like the pick. Number 16, Arizona. I'm between two guys, Christian Barmore or Caleb Farley. I think that, yes, I know Surtain's still available, but in that system where they like to let their corners just be on an island, I just don't. I wouldn't feel great about that at all. They could. I kind of think I'm going to go Farley here. I think Farley is, again, he's another one of those guys where there's injury concerns, but if he doesn't, if he's healthy, he's going to be an elite corner. He has all pro potential. And they could use a corner. Getting that number one corner locked down is something that I think could help their team a lot. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think this is a team. If like one of those three wide receivers slips, I think it'd be an interesting team to add a receiver to next to Hopkins and have that duo. But if Farley's here, yeah, I think he's a really good pick. I think that makes perfect sense for Arizona. And, after letting Peterson go, they're going to need a replacement.
Exactly. And for the receiver, again, like I keep saying, you can get one in the second round.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be plenty of guys available. So this is a good pick for Arizona. I like it. Anything else you want to add for Farley?
Nope. Let's go to number 17. As the official Las Vegas Raiders podcast, who are you giving to go? Now, the real player that they're going to get is just going to be someone completely off the board that no one expects.
Yeah, exactly. So this is interesting. Surtain would be an interesting pick here. But I think with how many corners they've drafted lately, I think they still like some of these guys. They just want to see them healthy. So I don't think they go corner, and I don't think they look corner. This might be a stretch here, but this is a guy I kind of like on this team. He had some attitude to them, and I'm going to go with Tevin Jenkins. I like Tevin Jenkins to take that right tackle spot, replace Trent Brown here. He's kind of a bully on the offensive line. I like bullies. I think it makes a ton of sense. They need to replace Brown, and I think Jenkins is a guy who could be that.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't hate that. I don't hate that pick at all. I'm a fan of Jenkins. I think, again, so it feels like they probably would take Surtain here, but again, we're not doing what they would do. We're doing what we think they do. And they could definitely use a tackle. That might be their biggest position of need. So getting a tackle, I don't hate that at all.
Yeah, we've always seen the Raiders get kind of weird. I just feel like this is the guy they'd look at and love at right tackle. Honestly, he's such a big guy over there, and I just feel like he'd really fit their team.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't hate that at all. Number 18. So for Miami, this is what I'm talking about. You don't draft a receiver. Number 6.
You're taking your guy here.
Well, I'm not going to go that early. I could take him, but I feel like I'm trying to go with this list a little bit. He seems a bit too far down, so I'm going to go Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman, great wide receiver. I think that could realistically happen at 18. You now got a receiver who I think it's not that crazy. He's not that outside of the ballpark of Jamar Chase. I do think Chase is better, but it's not this wild thing. And you got the best defensive player, in my opinion, on the board. I'm still really high on Parsons. So to me, this is why you wait on wide receiver. You can select one now.
Yeah, if they had this kind of draft, I think they'd feel pretty good about it. The one thing with Miami with this pick is I feel like they kind of have the big receiver corner market cornered with, they have Devontae Parker and I just feel like, what's that? I know Will Fuller's a little more of a speed
They
guy.
both play on the outside. Yeah, you could go. Kadarius Toney's my guy. I feel like that would be a little bit. I felt like that would be a bit of a reach. I wouldn't. We're saying what could realistically happen. I'm not sure if he'd go here. I would put him here, but yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a good pick. I think that they might look for a guy in the slot, but like you said, they don't necessarily have to go there. They can figure that out and make it work. So yeah, I think it makes sense. This would be a really good draft for them to get Bateman and Parsons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Number 19, the Washington football team. Who do you got?
Yeah, so they're probably hoping that either there's a position to move up for a quarterback or one of these offensive tackles fall. Unfortunately, in our draft, neither one of those happened. They didn't get either of those guys available. So they kind of have some leeway here, but they're going to go Patrick Surtain and make this defense really sick. I feel like they could add another corner, and I think this would be an interesting fit for them. So I think Surtain finally stops falling and goes here to Washington.
Interesting. I thought you were going to go JOK here, but that's an interesting one. Again, I don't hate it. I think that could work in that system. I'm not sure if they need a corner, but if they want to just go best player available, it's not the worst thing in the world, although I feel like maybe improving linebacker might have made more sense.
Yeah, I think there's a few different positions they can go with, and honestly, as Dash here says, if this draft happened in front of them, this might be a position then where they trade back and just acquire more assets.
Mhm.
Because, like I said, I think that they have a few positions in need, and with tackles and receivers and quarterbacks being taken off the board here, this might be a position then where they say, you know what, we're not in love with a lot of these fits. Let's just go ahead and move back and acquire more assets. Or, Owusu Koromoa is another guy too that I think could really fit the team.
Yeah, I think either one of those. And again, people are higher on Surtain than me. So if you feel like he's going to be an elite, like number one corner, then taking him at 19, that's worth it. So I don't hate it. So now for Chicago, I think they got to go offensive line here. They're another team. They would love a quarterback. And I think I'm going to go. This is a bit of a reach because you could go Elijah Vera Tucker. I think Dylan Raduns here. It's again, I know it's a bit of a reach, but I feel like there's still that chance that they need the offensive line. And I think that he's a very interesting player. I could easily see him. I could see him ending up. His potential is through the roof because his tape is great. It's just not against great competition. So he's a big wild card in this draft. But I think they need to improve their offensive line, and he could help them do that.
Yeah. No, I think that makes a ton of sense. I think we have a little bit of a run here with a lot of teams that it's like, oh yeah, they could probably add a tackle.
Yeah. Someone said they need the best offensive line available. Well, I think I gave them the best offensive lineman available. So how about that?
Boom, get them. So, yeah, I mean, it depends on how you feel about a lot of these guys. Clearly, as we, talked about, we're not as high on Vera Tucker as some of the other guys are. But I think, if he's available and that's the guy they like, they take him. We're just more, you're more keen on Raduns, and I think that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and also to be fair, I did a list of prospects. I have Raduns at 36 and Vera Tucker at 37. So they're literally one spot apart. If you went Vera Tucker, I wouldn't be mad.
Yeah. So I think that makes a ton of sense. It's a good pick and it's position in need for them. So that makes perfect sense. So am I good to move on with the Colts here?
Yep, go ahead.
All right. So I'm going to go. All right. So this is an interesting one. So I feel like this is a team that kind of has some needs across, they could add another tackle with all the tackles taken. They could add Owusu Koromoa, Kwity Paye, something like that, because they need some pass rushing. I'm going to go with Kwity Paye. I'm going to end up taking Paye here. I think he makes sense for this team. This is a team for as great as their defense was. They weren't the best at getting a ton of sacks last year, and I think it'd make a lot of sense to add an edge rusher to this team. I think Vera Tucker could also be an option here, but I think getting Kwity Paye makes sense.
Yeah, I like it. The chat is a big fan of that, so there you go. It makes sense to me too, and especially I think they're in a bit of a luxury with Washington and Chicago, the two teams above them. Definitely don't need edge rusher, so that can just give you a little bit of a cushion where you can potentially have it fall to you. So I like it a lot. I think Kwity Paye is really good. He's the second best edge rusher on my board, and this feels like honestly a little bit of a steal here at 21. I think it's a good pick.
Yeah, I do too. I think this is a team that could add another guy there. Honestly, they could probably add a couple guys at the position. They really need to add that to probably, maybe make this the best defense in football next year.
Yeah. All right. So now let's see. I'm trying to get my. Yeah. So the Titans are an interesting spot here. I don't feel super. I don't know. It's tough for Tennessee because it's like. I feel like I like Greg Newsome. I'm kind of leaning towards maybe Greg Newsome could make some sense here. They could use some secondary. I like JOK. I think he's the best player on the board. Even Christian Barmore, but those aren't really needs. So it's like, what do? Do you go for needs? Do you go for do you draft a tackle this draft to kind of make up for the disaster that was Isaiah Wilson? You could go that way. I don't know. According to Pro Football Focus on the website, they say they could use wide receiver to replace Corey Davis. I could see that with Terrence Marshall Jr. I wouldn't hate that. It's tough. I think I'm just going to go. They need defensive help, and I think Greg Newsome would fit their defense well. They like to play a lot of zones, so getting a good zone corner. It's a bit of a reach for me for Newsome, but I think that he fits the scheme well, and it's a position of need, so that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah. No, I think it makes a lot of sense there. I think the best case scenario for them, if they want to add a receiver, if a guy like Bateman falls, because I think he fits that Corey Davis role pretty nicely. Mm-hmm. But obviously he's taken early in this one. or earlier in this one, not necessarily early for his position. So he's taken earlier in this one. Getting a guy like Newsom, they need some help at corner. I think that makes a ton of sense. Vera Tucker's probably someone they think long and hard about here too.
Yeah, yeah. I thought about that. I definitely did. Number 23, Jets. Where are you going?
All right, so they're probably kicking themselves. I actually had Newsom penciled in here as the pick. Just looking ahead at this thing, obviously he's taken the pick before, so we have to readjust. I feel like they could go in a few different spots here because it is the Jets. They still need a lot of help here. I'm gonna go with Najee Harris. I'm going to go a little off grain here and take a running back. I feel like this is a team that needs an influx of talent, and I think Najee Harris could be the guy that really helps them. And, they're going to need to add some offensive linemen, I think, to this team. They're going to need to add some edge rushers. But at the same time, you say, hey, we got Wilson and Harris. That's a fun duo.
Yeah. I don't know about this one, Kyle.
I think I'm going to take some L's on this one, but,
Yeah.
I think it's a position that they can add to.
I'm glad to get some heat off me. You know what? Maybe I'll try to defend it to some degree because listen, I respect the boldness. As someone who has been making bold decisions this whole draft process, I'm not gonna hate on you for making a bold pick. The one thing that you could see is that, like, hey, getting a guy like Zach Wilson who's so good at the deep ball, getting a halfback, getting a running game going that can sort of get your opposing team out of cover 2, get him into cover 1, get him a single safety deep, and you can kind of then open up the deep game. I think they need a running game. Now, I'm not a huge fan of it for a team that's not ready to compete right now to get a running back in the first round, but I do see some logic here in helping develop Wilson.
Yeah. So I think it's a good starting point for them. Obviously, taking running back here is always risky, but I think he's a guy who's going to be able to put up numbers and excite some Jets fans going forward. So I'm going to go with Najee Harris here at 23. That's my pick. On to Pittsburgh here at 24. Quickly get this off me.
Yeah. Hey, again, I respect the boldness, even if it's not what I would have done. Pittsburgh's interesting here. They're interesting. I could, again, they don't need. I mean, they could use a linebacker, I guess, and Jock is available. I was thinking Elijah Vera Tucker all the way because they need offensive line help. That was such an issue last year. But you know what? Why not be great at something? Make your defense great. Let's go JOK here. Why not? Get the best player on the board. I know I saw Eli was going for it, so there you go, Eli. Why not? I like the idea of being great at something, and I'd rather have a not great offensive line but a great defense than a still bad offensive line and a not as good defense. So their defense is going to be great either way. But I'm going to go. I like this pick.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a position in need, especially, they can add another pass rusher. He's not, your typical edge, but, they need to replace Bud Dupree's numbers somehow. And he's a guy who could put up some numbers too. I think he has the most exciting tape of anyone in the draft. His highlights are electric. He's a bit of a tweener, so it'll be interesting to see what Tomlin does with him. But at this point with the Steelers taking best player available, I don't think it's a bad choice.
Yeah, and as pointed out in the chat, Devin Bush comes back. He does, but now you have a second guy. They have, they do have other linebackers that aren't like horrible, but I just think that this is a big improvement, and he has all pro potential. That's why I want to have him.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. It'll be interesting to see how he's deployed in the league. That's the only thing I'm interested in.
I agree. I do agree. Number 25. Who do you got?
All right, so I will end the free fall here. They have a pretty good offensive line. They probably could add another tackle, so I think it makes sense. Elijah Vera Tucker here to the Jaguars. Yeah. And if they're able to get him and Lawrence in the first round, they're probably ecstatic with their draft. I think this is a good fit for them, so I'm going with Vera Tucker right there.
Yeah, I agree. I think this makes a ton of sense. I think getting a guy like Vera Tucker, who, again, he's a good tackle. I think there's a lot to like about him. So adding him to a team, they need a tackle. And again, we talk about protecting the young quarterbacks. This is what you can do, and I think that I'm entirely on board with this pick.
Yeah. So we don't have to spend too much time on that one.
Right.
I think it makes sense. You need a guy to protect Trevor Lawrence. That's the most important thing at this point. I think that pick works.
Yeah. So I'm scrolling down a little bit, trying to figure out who I want to get. The Browns are interesting to me because it doesn't seem like there's a ton that they like. I don't know. They seem pretty complete right here. I think that I'm thinking Barmore might make sense just given they could use an interior defensive lineman, and you have Clowney, you have Myles Garrett, obviously. So trying to make that D line great, you could use a guy up front. So I'll do that. I'll go Christian Barmore here for Cleveland.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because they cut Sheldon Richardson, if I remember correctly, right? So they probably could add another guy on the defensive line. I think that makes sense. I also think this is another potential trade back thing because I think Cleveland feels pretty good about their team. But if Barmore falls down here, I think this is a team. This is the team. This is the guy they go with.
Yeah, you could maybe go like again. This could be a Kadarius Toney landing spot, but I still think I don't think they're going to go wide receiver here. So I think they'd be happy again, and clear things up for a guy like Myles Garrett. If you can get him one-on-one matchups, look out rest of the league.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense here. So I'll go ahead with Baltimore. I've been saying for basically since this podcast started, the Ravens need a receiver. They need a bigger guy. I have said how much I like Terrence Marshall Jr. a lot as people are going in the chat about him. Terrence Marshall Jr. I like this pick here. I like this fit. Great size, great route running. Has a lot of Justin Jefferson to his game. Speaking of LSU receivers, taken in the mid-20s of the first round. I think he fits, so I like him.
I don't disagree whatsoever. I think he fits this system as well with, he is really good at those play action stuff over the middle. And I think that this could be a situation where Terrence Marshall goes to the right system. He gets kind of wide receiver one targets and could actually, maybe this is a offensive rookie of the year guy. If a quarterback does well enough, they're going to get it. And I think with 5 quarterbacks going in the first round, it's probably going to end up being a quarterback. But still, you could see him kind of having a breakout season if Baltimore selects him, which I could see them doing with 2 picks right around where people are projecting Marshall to go.
Yeah, so I feel like they need to add a receiver, and this is a fit for them. This isn't, with how electric Toney is, I think they look long and hard about it. I just think they need a bigger receiver. That's my only thing, and that's the only reason I probably wouldn't go with him in this spot. I think they need a guy that can, have some tough slant routes on third down to, help out Jackson. And there's a lot of things to like about Toney. We've talked about him extensively. I just don't think that's him necessarily. I think Terrence Marshall's a better fit for what they need at receiver.
Yeah. Okay. For number 28, so as a Buccaneers fan, my mindset here is what would I be absolutely devastated by if the Saints did? And to me, there is no worse thing they could do in my mind than drafting Kellen Mond here at number 28. And no, it's a bit of a reach, but I don't think it's that crazy. And I do think that this would be just something that if they got him here, he would fit that scheme so well. And next thing you know, they could legitimately be competitive next year.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting one. That'd be really fun to see. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I thought you were going to go Toney here because I think he makes sense next to Thomas. But I feel like either one of those guys would honestly devastate you.
I mean, essentially, yes. But again, you need a quarterback. Are people, again, this is the kind of thing. Oh, my God, Jameis Winston, he's going to finally put it together. Year 7. That's usually when quarterbacks finally get it together, right?
Yeah, that's when they all figure it out.
Right.
Taysom Hill can't not fumble the football, so there's that. It'd be interesting to see. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see if they do. I don't know if they go quarterback this early. I think they might take a flyer on someone later, but I think that makes sense if they go for one here too. There's a lot of different variables. I think the one problem is I just think this team has too many other roster holes that maybe they probably go elsewhere because of that.
Do they know? I mean, how big of roster holes do they have? Yeah, they could use another receiver, but it hasn't been an issue in the past. I feel like Sean Payton can scheme guys open. I feel like their biggest roster hole is the most important position in football, the quarterback position.
It's definitely the one with the most questions. So, Taysom Hill was good in a limited sample size, but it seems like he's always good in a limited sample size. I don't know how it's going to work over 16 games. That'll be the interesting thing.
Yeah. All right. I guess, again, no one agrees with me on Kellen Mond. I think he's going to be great, but we'll move on. 29, Green Bay. Where do you got?
I feel like there's two not just good, but I think there's two great fits here. I think there's two great fits. Kadarius Toney's a great fit, and I think Landon Dickerson's a great fit. Landon Dickerson would immediately replace Corey Linsley, which I think they need. They need a center to replace the center. Kadarius Toney is making up for drafting a backup quarterback and a third-string running back last year with your first two picks by getting an electric player next to Devontae Adams. I'll just go with Toney. I think if it came to this situation, I think the Packers would go Dickerson. But I think if I'm a Packers fan and just so frustrated with how they drafted these receivers the past few years, I think I'd want Toney. So I'm going to go with Toney here.
Yeah, I could see this happening, and I also think that Kadarius Toney that fits that team perfectly. He won't be getting the double teamed like that. And we see, it's been a thing for a couple years now. Devontae Adams gets doubled. Who else can win? It's a little bit tough. I mean, we saw that in the conference championship game down the stretch when Tampa Bay's defense was suffocating. No one else could really win against man coverage. Well, Toney can win against man coverage. This is a perfect fit. And with this value, late first round pick, I think it would be a steal. And I think that he would end up being a Packers legend.
Yeah, I mean, he's completely electric. Has some suspect drops, but overall, he's just an electric football player. And I think he could very well be a stud. And he's another guy similar to Waddle, where it's like the NFL is just so catered to his skill set now. If he's the best receiver in 5 years out of this draft, I wouldn't be shocked with him either. Because like you said, he has a lot of Tyreek Hill to this game. A lot of his skill set's similar. So it's an interesting pick here. Like I said, I think if it is the Packers here in this situation, I do think they go Dickerson, but I think there are centers here that they can get later in the draft that they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at the Dickerson pick either. I think Dickerson's really good as well. Again, if you're someone who's concerned about injury history, maybe that's something. But either way, and let's be honest, Green Bay, they'll draft someone in the 6th round to be a center, and he'll be an All-Pro.
Yeah, no kidding. So they'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Number 30. The Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are an interesting team. I really do feel like they do have some needs, but it's kind of a weird spot where, Jason Ojulari, Azeez Ojulari, I don't feel great about because those are guys who, to me, they are definite flyer picks, I think. So do you do that when you could use an edge? Maybe. But I think that there's also, I guess maybe I'll ask this. Oops, this is the interior offensive line. In defensive interior, would it be too early for Levi Onwuzurike at 78? Is this too early, too much of a reach?
No, he's a top 20 player on my board, and I think he's higher on yours. I've seen him go in the first round a lot. I think he's an explosive. The thing is, if you can't get an elite edge rusher, I think a really good pass rushing interior defensive lineman just does a whole lot for your team. I think he's an explosive player on that up the middle. And I think he's going to be a great fit for Buffalo if they got him. I'd be pissed if they got him as a Patriots fan.
Right. I think that's I think it makes sense. And again, guys like Owe, guys like Ojulari, there's bust potential there. When guys primarily win with speed as edge rushers, it more often than not doesn't work out. When an interior defense, then some lineman primarily wins with strength and more often does work out. That's what Ojulari does. So that's what I'm going.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. It'd be an interesting pick there. So, we've talked about it. I love Ojulari. I think it makes a lot of sense.
And a tough puppy, I love you. I have to put you in timeout. You can't spam the chat like that. Just a timeout. You're fine. We've got to keep the chat so some other people can comment as well. Number 31 now. Where are you going?
All right. So we've wrapped up the receiver here with Terrence Marshall. Now I think it becomes interesting. I'm not huge on Walker Little, honestly, and I think that they could use obviously a tackle now to replace Orlando Brown, but I'm not huge on him at this spot. The other option, of course, is you go with one of these edge rushers. They lost. They're the other team that got Yannick Ngakoue, and now he's gone too. So maybe they replace the edge rushers, and I'm going to end up doing that. I'm going with the guy I like more between these two. I'm going with Jason Owe. I think Owe makes a lot of sense with Baltimore. I know you said that, and it's true. Guys who win primarily with speed in college level, it's a risk going to the NFL. But there's one thing that he has going for him going to this system. He's going to go to a team that has a lot of really good defensive linemen that are going to take up a lot of guys. Maybe with that, then he has some opportunities to make some plays with this Baltimore team. I think this makes sense to go with another edge rusher here. I'm going with Owe.
It's interesting. I mean, especially because again, I do feel like he out of the guys who I feel like are kind of these flyer picks with the edge rusher, yes, he does have rely on that speed, but he has the strength too. So I do like him better than some of these other picks. I still have a second round grade on him and a high second round grade on him. So it's not like I'm completely off it. And one thing about Baltimore too that's interesting is just the way they love the blitz. It can make things easier for an edge rusher, and it values having quicker edge rushers, which might actually be a good fit. So I like the fit. And it's tough because yeah, maybe they could have gone somewhere else in a vacuum. Maybe this is a trade down scenario because I don't see who else they pick here that I feel better about. So maybe you even go like a Gregory Rousseau, which I know I'm not crazy high on, but just because again that's a fun flyer. But I feel like Away is probably the better, safer bet. So yeah, I like this pick.
Yeah, so I feel like he's a guy who fits. Like I said, I think he can fit their team. Like you said, the interesting one would be, do they just um anyway, so I think there's an interesting scenario here where like maybe they take a Gregory Rousseau and just say, we don't love a lot about his game, but there's also insane upside here, and we have a pretty good team regardless. So let's take the guy with potentially the most upside, and we're adding another star to this team. Because as much as like I said, there are guys I feel like later in the second round, if you want to move back up or towards the end of the second round, that if you want a guy like a Liam Eckenberg at a Notre Dame at right tackle, you can get him in the second round. Or no, didn't they just trade their second round pick? Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
So, well, they'd have to find a situation in the third round where I do think there still is going to be a tackle that they can get at right tackle to fill in that spot.
Yeah, we got a wild super chat. I appreciate the Mighty Lazy Unicorn not putting that on the screen, but nevertheless, appreciate it. So, number 32 here, Tampa Bay, the reigning champs. Very fun time. Where do we go here? So this is interesting because there are some players I like still on the board. I like Landon Dickerson a lot. I like Dimey Brown. I like Jabril Cox. I like Jamar Johnson. There's a lot of guys who I think are good, but the issue is like it's not like they need anybody. Pat Freiermuth, another guy who I think is good. It's a little bit tough to really say exactly where they should go. I think the two I'm leaning towards would either be running back or do you go wide receiver here? Because Antonio Brown's still not on the roster. And as of right now, their number 3 receiver would be Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson, which I don't hate, but maybe there's some value there. You could get Elijah Moore still on the board, Dimey Brown still on the board. I think I'm going to go running back, though, just because I just feel what am I doing? I think I'm going to go running back here just because I do feel like getting a running back at this spot. The Buccaneers are trying to win now. And I'm not a believer in you should never draft a running back in the first round. I'm a believer in sometimes it makes sense to draft a running back in the first round. If you're trying to win now, Tampa Bay's trying to win now. This is the prototypical time to draft a running back in the first round. So ETN here for Tampa Bay. That's what I'm going with.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I would say, that's a good option. The other option too, like if Onwuzurike falls, I think he'd actually be a really good fit as another defensive lineman because I feel like defensive linemen at this point are kind of like bullpen arms in baseball. You could just never have enough when it really comes down to you being a contender. So maybe they add a guy like Onwuzurike to, say, oh, there's some rotation there. I could honestly say the same thing about Gregory Rousseau, and he has some chance to develop again with some pretty good edge rushers. So that's an option, but I think ETN makes sense. They have a lot of running backs, but nothing really that you love. And so you say, let's put him and Fournette in the backfield and just run with it.
Yeah, I also should mention that's the end of our draft. We're just doing the first round. I accidentally I think I actually put 7-round draft instead of just the first round, but that's going to be the end of it, just so you guys know. But back to Tampa Bay, I think that part of the reason why I think that they need to go halfback here is their worst stretch last year. Their biggest issue was picking up blitzes, and Ronald Jones is not good at picking up blitzes. And honestly, Leonard Fournette, he was fine at it, but there's still big improvement. ETN is kind of that true 3-down back. I like Harris a little bit better just in that role, but ETN can do it as well. So I think that getting someone like that who can just do what you need him to do, that's what I like.
Yep. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that running back is a position in need for them still, even with playoff Lenny for the postseason. You're gonna need a guy to get those regular season carries.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's our mock draft. Kyle, we survived it.
Yeah, this is the first. Last year we didn't do it live, so we didn't get to
Right.
hear all the
Hmm.
lovely comments after every pick. But it
Yes,
was fun. It was fun to see.
it was.
Glad.
I was about to say, yeah. How dare we? The poor people in the chat who had to hear a different opinion that's slightly different than theirs. Oh my god. I hope they're okay.
Yeah. By the way, the did you see the thing that Ian Rappaport said?
I did not. What is this? Breaking news?
So, not really, but it's basically
Okay.
saying his reports are that it's down to Mac Jones and Trey Lance for number 3 to San Francisco. That Justin Fields is not in the conversation.
I kind of said that a little.
Yeah, and I said Mac Jones.
Yeah, so there you go. It would have been tough if you said Justin Fields and then immediately they say no chance Justin Fields is going to be selected.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't see a scenario where these quarterbacks fall out of the top 10. I think it's
Hmm.
going to be really hard for that to happen.
Right.
But it kind of feels like the way things have been going, Fields would be the guy to fall out of the top 10, right?
Probably. I mean, I don't think it's that crazy for one of them to fall out of top 10 because if Carolina doesn't go quarterback, I mean, you have the first three, and then you have, I think, Denver's going quarterback. But I wouldn't be shocked if, one of them falls. And I think it could be Fields or maybe Trey Lance.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. Looking forward to the draft Thursday night.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Thursday night for everyone in the chat who is still with us. Thank you we appreciate it. I have a ton of videos I'm going to be posting on draft night, so be prepared for that. If you're confused about some of these players, why I have them where I have them, I have it's going to be over 40 film studies prepared for draft weekend. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, good stuff as always.
Mm-hmm.
You're just killing the game right now.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so good
The chat
stuff. I'm gonna.
disagrees.
It's fine. They'll be okay.
Yeah, I know. No, it's no. What's hilarious about it, Jackson? Can I get your address? Yeah. So it's no. It's Lazy Unicorn 420. Get it together. Yeah,
356.
yes. Oh no. Now everyone's going to show up to 356.
Whatever.
Yeah, just any 356. Yeah. All right. Well, I think in classic on the sideline fashion, this show has ended with us completely getting off the rails.
Yeah, I mean that's the end of the draft there. So we got to make it weird at the end. So that's it.
Yes. Exactly. All right. Kyle, let them know where they can find us before we head out.
Yeah, make sure to like this video, subscribe to Jackson Kruger Sports Productions on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter. That's at Jackson Kruger. Follow me at by Kyle Grondin. And follow the On the Sideline Twitter account. That's at OT. What is it again? On the Sideline JK on Twitter. At On the Sideline JK on Twitter. I'm going to forget it every time.
Every
for
time.
any show updates, just make sure to follow us there. And thanks for tuning into the show.
Yeah, should be fun. Very much looking forward to it. Next week, next Sunday, we'll break down everything that happens. So be on the lookout for that. And until next time, have a good one.
Peace.